An island that was said to be born of the union of Helios, the sun god, and the ocean nymph Rhodes, can only be splendid. The legend tells us this, and it is completely true. The island of Rhodes is the largest island of the Dodecanese Islands in the southeastern Aegean Sea in Greece. It is fascinating on land as it is wonderful in the sea. Even when we sail away from its fortress that have been built all around the port, we are blown away by its beauty. Before visiting the medieval city of Rhodes, we have decided to sail north to see a small but very precious treasure that we can reach only by sea in an hour's sailing time. It is the island of Symi that every year attracts more and more tourists because of the beauty of its towns and villages and its crystal clear seas. A tiny island of 68 square kilometers that welcomes us as we enter the port of Jalos. A landing that offers us this wonderful view of the colorful neoclassical houses that cover the slopes around the town of Horio. An island that right from ancient times has made its living from fishing, boat building and sponge fishing. More than that, perhaps, we can say that this island is the Greek capital of sponges, as Mike, our world champion freediver, explains. We have arrived on Symi, the island of the Spongy Fisherman, where we meet Panoramitis, sorry, who will be telling us all about sponges, right?
First, I tell you about how we dive now.
Yes.
And how we used to dive before.
Yes.
Okay? I want you to see there the old diving system, the diving suit, a helmet, the old pump machine.
See?
Used to give the air to the divers.
How old is this diving suit?
After this one, it must be 150 years old.
Wow, it is really old.
Before this is the stone.
They dived in apnea with the stone, all right. The evolution came when they could dive with this particular diving suit. Yes, that is how they fished for sponges in Greece. First of all, in apnea with the skandalopetra, the stone that gave them the weight to go down deep into the sea, to then use the special diving suit.
Questo col buchi grandi.
This has large holes.
Queste sono le spugne, le classico per la famiglia, per l'uomo, per le
These are the
donne,
classical sponges
per
for
la
family,
buona macchina,
men, women,
buona
cars,
macchina,
because they
perché
don't
gratta
scratch.
no.
They are not made of
Plastic
plastic.
materiale no,
100% natural, okay? It
No
is very
morbide.
soft.
Not forget, sponges filter the water. 3,000 liters of the seawater every day get plankton, eat and grow. This is how they live. But I have to inform you, my friends. Sponges is an animal. It's like a living thing, okay? But they have no system. They have no stomach, brain, legs, mouth.
Yeah, that's right. These undulating underwater beings are among the simplest multicellular organisms that exist in all of the seas of the world. Not only, they are also the first organisms to have appeared on the Earth. It is calculated that they appeared 700 million years ago. As well as being ornamental, sponges perform an important ecological function for the reef. By filtering an enormous volume of water, they keep the surrounding water clean and make the divers here very happy indeed. Sighting the sponges underwater is a real pleasure. Look at the multitudes of colors and different forms that there are. It's a never-ending feast for your eyes. These are elephant's ears. They can be found at a depth of 150 meters. These can be found a little near the surface. These can be found at 80 to 60 meters. They have much smaller holes because the pressure of the deeper water is much stronger. It has to have a more elastic skeleton. This is one of the best sponges. When Panoramitis has just taught us is that the smaller the holes, the more valuable the sponge. Our expert shows Mike the perfect sponge for a body scrub, because even from the moment that you wet it, it remains rough. He shows us another species. Sponges must be wet, not dry, as dry sponges are all the same.
This one here, the texture is even tighter than the elephant ear, than the silk sponges, you see? Even smaller holes. I mean, but it works only with the seawater. Mineral water, no work, doesn't help. What happened? It keeps the iodium inside, this kind of sponge. And you use it as a mask, you breathe through the sponge.
Like this.
A sponge for me,
Ci vediamo così.
it keeps
E
your
tiene
head
fresco in
fresh
testa,
with the
col caldo
heat
che fa
of the
qua a
valley
Symi,
of
e direi che è molto
I think that
indicante
is
questo
the right
cappello.
I will show you, of course, the sponge for decoration, coral.
This seems
Questo
a
sembra
sort of
tipo
coral.
corallo.
Spugna come
Sponges in
forma di
coral
corallo,
form.
sono
They are
tre
three
insieme.
together.
Okay?
Wow, this is beautiful.
Che bello questo. Questo è molto bello.
This really looks like a vase to use at home. It is very
Importante, ragazzi,
important,
per
the
le
color
spugne e
of the
le colori.
sponges, okay?
Okay, I told you before. Tell me.
This
Questa è
is treated with
trattata
acid.
con acidi,
This is natural.
questa invece è
Questo sono
naturale.
naturale.
This is another great secret that we have learned. The dark sponges are natural and therefore more resistant. The lighter ones are treated by oxygenation, which modifies the color and makes them more delicate. Panoramitis shows us how to cut and refine the larger sponges that are difficult to sell as they are.
You just cut it with a knife and then
So you
Quindi
refine
le
them by
lavori,
cutting and
li
shaping.
tagli, le modelli.
In order to break open and remove the residue inside the sponge, they use a sort of rolling pin, a simple method.
so sponges, it takes 18 months, nearly 2 years, for any size to be double. Sometimes spugne sono così
Like this
grandi.
one, like that one.
Come questo.
Not practical to use. In short, now we have a lot more information about sponges, from fishing methods to the different types of sponge that can be found in nature under the sea. A complex universe that the island of Symi has shown us firsthand. So, talking about sponges and spongy fishermen, we are here in the company of a friend who I met a year ago, Emanuele, a spongy fisherman.
Ciao Emanuele,
Hi
ciao
Emanuele.
Manolis.
Hi Manolis, how are you?
Come stai?
Are you
Stai
well?
bene?
So happy to
Felice
see
di
you.
vederti.
Anche voi.
You started to collect sponges underwater, then you became a captain, right, of a boat, and you used to dive using this stone? Yes, for 4 years. It's very heavy, but in the sea it weighs the half. This must be more than 10 kilos, 10, 11 kilos. 10 kilos. Yes, as we have already seen, the spongy fishermen dive in the sea using the skandalopetra, a stone that is marble or granite, with a variable weight of between 8 to 14 kilos, shaped in a hydrodynamic form by rounding off the corners. You put this line in your hand. You kept the line in your hand for safety?
Yes, this line was 40 to 50 meters long.
But was it tied to the boat?
No, there was another on the surface.
The free diver was tied to the stone using the line, but the skandalopetra was tied to the boat or to an assistant that remained on the boat. This method has allowed these fishermen to dive in safety for many years. This is your boat, right?
Yes, with the sponges.
Therefore you took the fisherman. Where are you here? Is that you in the front? This is you? This photo is from 1950.
1954.
Each man dived 3 times.
Yeah, 3 times.
You worked for 12 hours each day. In reality, the history that Manolis tells us about has its origins much before, as the first apnea fishermen divers goes back to the beginning of the century with the famous apnea fisherman Hage Stati, who in 1913 managed to recover the anchor of an Italian ship called the Regina Margherita
At Carpathos.
at the Carpathos Islands, but Hage Stati is from Symi. Yes, because more than half of the inhabitants of Symi were spongy fishermen, just like Hage Stati, who was able to recover the anchor at the depth of 83 meters.
When I die, I will only leave a stone.
This is the inheritance, but it is also a piece of history. It's impossible not to love the sea and the gifts that it gives you when you are born and raised in a place like Symi. An island of contrast that reveals its magic as soon as you enter the port of Jalos, dotted with this mosaic of pastel-colored neoclassical houses with their triangular gables. If, however, you travel around the island, you can discover the wilder side, places untouched by man, with the rocky coastline, cliffs, and every kind of deserted beach you could wish for. Only boats or taxi boats can reach the almost tropical bays like Agia Marina, at about 20 minutes from the town. With its smooth, glass-like sea, clean and transparent, that simply takes your breath away. A place where local crafts are still alive and kicking, as we can see from this artist that with his hands and his imagination designs on skins as if he is tattooing. Or like this typical Asian boat builder that continues a craft that has been used here on Symi since the 19th century. A place that is both intimate and silent, very different from the main island of Rhodes that we will go now to visit. A very big island where it seems the sun never goes down and that it illuminates every part of its crystal clear sea, every beach and every bay to welcome the boats and the tourists. But it is also an island that has a glorious history. In short, it is an authentic open-air museum that Mike has come to discover more closely. Rhodes is not only nature, landscapes and sea. Today I wish to immerse myself in the archeological history of the wonderful city. And I will do this with Osvaldo, a friend who has lived here for 27 years and knows exactly what to show me. Hi Mike, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. Where are we? We are at the Marine Gate, one of 11 gates, but this is the main one that we arrived to from the port area, and it takes us to the medieval city of the Knights of St. John. It is the main one, we can say, of the 11 gates. There are another 3 quite important ones, the remaining ones are smaller. Mike and Osvaldo head out towards the Museum Square in the Colacchio area, where the Knights of St. John lived from 1324 to 1512. The city of Rhodes was founded in 400 BC by the ancient Greeks. Then, as history tells us, the Romans came who improved the fortifications. After the Romans, the Byzantines occupied and further improved the city, to then arrive to the 14th century AD with the Knights of St. John, who engaged an Italian architect called Tadini. From where? From Bergamo. He was the one who also improved the fortifications of the medieval city of Bergamo Alta, so he was quite famous at that time. They called him to reinforce and amplify his walls, making them impenetrable practically. Perfect, now let's enter. We are entering the Knights Hospital. Today it is an archeological museum, but at the time it was the Rhodes Hospital because the Knights of St. John were a nursing order. Formed as a Catholic order in the Holy Land to cure and look after the sick, the Knights of St. John traveled around to take the Christian religion into the world. They had a Grand Master, their leader, elected for life and who was only answerable to the Pope. Here we are inside the Rhodes Hospital. As you can see, there are a great deal of arches. Above these are the rooms where the sick were cared for. Today it is an archeological museum where we can find objects that have been collected in various archeological sites here. For example, pieces of Roman architecture, vases, cannonballs. Behind us there's a lion.
alle nostre spalle un leone.
Behind us there's a Venetian lion, practically. We now find ourselves at the beginning of the Knight's Road. Can you see how long it is? It goes up the hill to that palace we can see. These palaces that we can see were built by the knights in the 200 years they were here to house the various knights of fortune who came here from different countries. Each one had to have the right hostelry because they all spoke different languages, divided up by country.
Divisi per nazione.
As we continue, we find a palace for the knights originating from Italy. This gate in wrought iron bears the cross of the Knights of the Holy Land. The knights from Italy were very few at the time. However, in spite of this, in these 200 years here in Rhodes, two of these Italians were elected to be Grand Master. One was called Giambattista degli Orsini and the other Fabrizio de Carretto. Few but good. And here, this is a very big building, so particular. This is the great hostelry of France, where the knights who spoke French stayed. They were the biggest group at the time. In the 200 years that the Knights of St. John were here on Rhodes, of the 16 great masters, 12 had French or Provençal origins. As you can see, there are these large towers and the dragon's head. These towers and dragon's heads were built by a clever architect to depict an incident that a French knight had. One day he encountered a crocodile. He thought that it was a dragon, so he killed it and brought inside the walls. So this clever architect thought it was a good idea to build the water spouts of the Gathering with dragon's heads, although it was a crocodile. Osvaldo, what are these doors? These are the stables where the knights stored their armor and weapons and housed their horses. They enter right here. They entered, left everything and made their way to the dormitories where they stayed. And this is the famous castle you told me about. Yes, here is the palace of the Grand Master, where the Grand Master lived. He was the head of all the knights, but he was also a bishop. He coordinated the whole group. He coordinated all the knights. He was elected unanimously by the heads of the 6 houses of the knights, and he had to speak all of their languages so that he could understand all of the Spanish, German, and English knights. But principally, he had to speak Latin. That was the language that was common to them all at the time, like English is today. And here we are almost at the end of our visit. Yes, but what we see here is the Suleiman Mosque. But Suleiman the Magnificent, who is the Sultan who won the battle against the knights to take over the medieval city, throwing out these knights in 1522. And this is where the Turkish history began. The Ottoman Empire begins here and lasted for 400 years until 1912 when Italians arrived. And we enter modern-day history. I want to thank you so much. This has been a wonderful visit, but at the moment I really miss the sea, and so now I think I will return to dive into the deep blue waves. Thank you, Osvaldo. See you soon.
Ciao, ciao.
Yes, because Mike, a world champion freediver here on Rhodes, has come to follow the history of the Spongy Fisherman, free divers for work and not by choice. Today, the technique of free diving with the stone is a sport, and so diving to the depths with a stone is used as training and therefore is a choice. I'm here with my student Ilaria Bonin, who is a world champion of certain types of free diving. What is that you want to achieve now?
My specialty until now has been diving in swimming pools. We are here now in this splendid bay with the idea to begin to confront open sea.
Confronting the sea at these depths, diving with a stone, is one of the most ancient ways and the most simple, because today's free divers are rather spoiled. We have the masks and the monofin, so the object in these days and of these training dives is to try to dive to the depths in the most simple and purest way. It can't be any more simple than this: a costume, barefoot, a nose clip, a stone. And off we go down into the blue sea, into the depths, without breathing. There is something to say about this Greek sea. For its temperature and visibility, it is the best place to try out this very tough and particular sport. And so, how is the training going?
Molto bene, dopo un iniziale adattamento in cui ho dovuto togliere tutte queste attrezzature di cui ero abituata, la pietra mi regala buone sensazioni, un buon scivolamento in acqua e soprattutto mi permette di lavorare molto su me stessa.
Effectively, free diving is about an internal journey dominated by silence, from the light at first to slide into darkness, to then return to the light, and of course to breathe. What do you want to achieve now? Tell us your secret.
My goal is to confront something of which I am a little afraid: the sea, the deep, and so to try to be like the great divers of the past by starting out like the sponge fisherman, diving into the deep with flippers and then trying without.
They seem to be dancing. A dance that is inspired by this rich environment both above and below the waves. All you need is a bit of snorkeling to understand. As we look around quickly from the ravines to the rocks that all house many forms of marine life as the rays of the sun shine down to help them grow. Or perhaps we can stop to observe the starfish and the cowrie shells scattered over the sandy seabed. Or the pinna nobilis, also known as the noble pen shell, surrounded by a field of Neptune grass. Or the fast cephalopods like the octopus, squid and cuttlefish that zigzag around in the blue sea, searching for food or trying not to be eaten themselves. In short, the Mediterranean Sea that surrounds the island of Rhodes simply amazes us, whether it is the shallowy sandy seabeds or the rock walls that plunge down into the deep blue sea. A rich sea that laps the small bays that are looked down upon by these white villages bathed in sunlight. Villages that seem like mazes with mosaics of narrow roads paved in pebbles. The same roads where we suddenly see a group of dancers ready to perform the typical dances of these villages. Greek dances have very ancient origins, as we can see from the dancing figures depicted on vases of the time. Here, every occasion in daily life is ideal to improvise a dance. Weddings, christenings, funerals, there is always a group of dancers ready to form a circle, to put their feet to the ground, to look to the horizon, and that whirl around in local costumes. Surrounded by a white picture frame, the dancers seems to clearly remind us where are we? In Greece, a place that is not only a place, but a unique macrocosmos that is both nature and culture.